the courts, if they were to proceed without any check on their power, without any balance on their power, then we will start to see an undemocratic and frankly dangerous authoritarian expansion of power in the Supreme Court.
Well, that was the Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says that all options should be on the table to rein in the Supreme Court's power. You heard a little bit of it there. This after the court wrapped up its term on Friday with some blockbuster cases that angered progressives. What you may not know is that 47% of the court's decisions this term were unanimous. That's up from 28% last term. Only 9%, so about 1 in 11, were 6-3 decisions, with all Republican-appointed justices in the minority. Julia, Chris, that number shocked me, to be quite frankly, when I heard it today. There's a lot going on here, obviously, with the court, but it's one of the things that they have sort of a PR problem, and folks might not know that basically half the cases were unanimous this year?
Well, exactly. I think a lot of it has to do with the headlines and the fact that the cases we heard last week and those decisions are making the headlines. And those are the grabbiest. They're the most controversial issues, or arguably the most controversial issues. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me. And also, when you have the president of the United States weighing in on this, and you have people like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez weighing in on this, that sort of adds to that. And you see it on the right as well. I think overall the court's been politicized, and this is the result of it.
You know, I hate to take any bait from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Ted Cruz of the House.
Right.
But her statement encapsulated the absurdity of the moment.
Which is?
That's what Congress does. She says we proceed to Supreme Court with no check, no balance to the Supreme Court. That's you, Congresswoman. That's your job. And because Congress won't do its job, Congress refuses to legislate. What John Roberts said when he sent back the student loan case, he said, why don't you pass something? If you want this, why don't you pass? You say it's so popular. You say it's so necessary. Why don't you pass it? It's the same thing he said about Obamacare. Our dysfunctional, absurd Congress that likes to hold stagey hearings and be a bunch of goofballs and not pass legislation that's necessary is supposed to be the check and balance on the Supreme Court. You don't need to pack the court or blow it up or do whatever. That's absurd.
I said 6-3 Republican minority. Of course, it's 6-3 Republican majority. AOC. As Chris says, you can just go and pass laws, right? Like President Biden and Democrats had the White House and the House for the first 2 years. They couldn't get student loans passed.
Yeah, but we didn't have 60 votes in the Senate, as a reminder. So Republicans blocked us every chance we tried to do much of that. I would say that this House Republican majority has zero interest in adding parameters on the Supreme Court and their unethical behavior. And so what America needs to do is elect a Democratic majority in the House, Senate, and White House, and we will put ethics reform.
But they just had
on
a
the Supreme
majority.
Court. They didn't have 60 votes in the Senate. We've got to get to there, or we got to get Republicans to change their tunes here, because if Americans lose faith in the Supreme Court, that is a pillar of democracy that will just collapse, and it may be really hurtful to our system of government.
But let's be clear, your own president said it was a bad idea. So this is not a Republican...
Not to ethics reform.
No, ethics reform, yes, but any idea of expanding or changing to meet any sort of political agenda. And I guarantee you, the minute the politics of the court swings back, it'll be the other side arguing. That's the one thing we can probably both agree on. But yes, a little bit of ethics, just assessment and understanding, a little self-reflection would probably be good. But I do think that at the end of the day, they're playing with fire, and I'm glad it's AOC that's throwing those bombs because we can just write it off as bad.
All right, well.
Sick burn.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.